from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez here with you live until the night is over here for another couple of hours. 833-4825-337, 8334 Valdez. People telling me that, they get along so well with the Israelis. The problem isn't that they don't get along. The problem is that you have this radicalized terror group that is running the show, if you will, in that little strip of beautiful land. And you look at these reports. I was just watching before some of these reports. One of the reports about the IDF opening fire on people going for aid. And then the same humanitarian group telling people, don't come here before 5 a.m. This is an active military base. We're in the middle of a war. And they didn't get their communication out until 4 a.m., at which time some people were already getting shot at about a mile away from this aid, this relief location. And again, I look at this and I just think, everybody wants to point the finger. Everybody's looking for a bad guy. And I'm sure people are going to draw their own conclusions on who the bad guy is. But when I look at this, what I see is just a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of people that are trying to make the best out of a horrible situation. And I don't know why visiting a funeral today made me think of that. But I guess you always have that renewed appreciation for life, after you experience the death of a loved one. And I couldn't help but think, if we approach things from a position of love, peace, reconciliation, right? I'm not saying you got to be Gandhi all the time, but I am saying that if you approach things leading with hate, right? And oftentimes that's what I think the most radical elements of the left actually do. They lead with hate. It's never, we don't like this policy because, or, we love America, but we're upset with this. It's always, we hate this country because it's built on stolen land. We hate these people because they're white. We hate these people because they're straight. We hate this because they're the oppressor, because they're this and because they're that. And ultimately, we've had these conversations in the past. These things come from one's worldview, right? And your worldview is yours. Nobody can change it but you, by informing yourself, by learning more. And if you haven't picked up the Communist Manifesto and read it and have a good understanding of it, you should. You should understand the history and the thinking that went into it. I'm not recommending it as a way of life. I'm not recommending it as a way to operate a government. I am recommending it because you want to know what not to do. You want to know what to look out for. You want to know what can truly claim the lives of people in society, right? And I say that at large because it is that element of Marxism, I'm going to say, that I feel exists in so many places, even amongst the radicals that are in the Middle East. Right? Despite them not, claiming to be communists per se, they use this same, I will get my goal by revolution. I will get my goal by killing you if I have to. That type of radical thinking isn't going to win, in my opinion, right? And it's just such an unfortunate thing. Couldn't help but make these comments tonight because life's too short to waste so much time hating others. You've got to really do the best you can. And I guess all of this comes full circle. One of my dearest friends, like a brother to me growing up, his father passed away. And relatively young guy, 74 years old. And when you hear people share the same experience about the same person, the the light that this person brought in their life, the way he helped every single person. There weren't people he didn't like, and even the people he didn't like, he was kind to them. And it makes you think, what do you want to leave behind? Or at least made me think, what am I going to leave behind? Right? And I try my best to get along with the ones I disagree with, whether it's on this show or in my actual life. And there's times, I can be, I guess, abrasive, rough, whatever. Bottom line is, all of us, I think, want to make an impact on this world. All of us, I think, want to be a positive influence in this world. And sometimes we kind of lose sight. I know I, for one, can say I definitely do and have, right? It's one of those moments where life comes full circle, right? Like the Lion King, it's the circle of life. You really have a moment and you say, wow, things are flashing, your life flashes right before you. And voila, it's over. And when you couple that with so much of what we're watching, it makes sense to me why you have people that embrace whatever movement they embrace. Some people care so much about what they believe in, they're willing to die for it. And listen, I think a lot of people love this country and they're willing to die for it if they have to. Should they need to defend it? Should they need to defend their wife, their child? I think there's a lot of people willing to put their life on the line for someone that they love. Right? Biblical. No greater love. However, when you're putting other people's lives on the line, this is where I think it becomes problematic. And this is not specific to conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else. This is specific to just one's worldview. And that's kind of what I wanted to start with and move into a couple of other topics. Again, we're going to do some calls tonight, working through some kinks in the system because I'm on the road. You may hear the show sounding a little bit different tonight. Bear with us as we work to get that sorted out. But our phone number, 833-482-5337 is the number, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Valdez. And despite the tech glitches that the deep state throws at us, we're going to continue to have this conversation. The left within the media are adamant about trying to get you scared about the big, beautiful bill. They're trying to scare people off, saying even Elon Musk is jumping ship. Of course, Speaker Johnson had some comments about that, and I think we have them right here. Listen to this.
Elon and I left on a great note. We were texting one another, happy texts, Monday. And then yesterday, 24 hours later, he does a 180 and he comes out and opposes the bill. And it surprised me, frankly. And I don't take it personal. We don't take it personal. Policy differences are not personal. I think he's flat wrong. I think he's way off on this, and I've told him as much, and I've said it publicly and privately. I'm very consistent in that. But am I concerned about the effect of this on the midterms? I'm not. Let me tell you why. Because when the big, beautiful bill is done and signed into law, every single American is going to do better. This bill is geared for middle and working class Americans, and they are going to feel the effects of it, and they're going to feel it before the midterm elections. So I have no concern whatsoever. I'm absolutely convinced that we're going to win the midterms and grow the House majority because we're delivering for the American people and fulfilling our campaign promises, and we'll see how that happens.
That, of course, Speaker Mike Johnson, and I want to get some reaction to that and the latest with the big, beautiful bill from none other than Congressman Burgess Owens. Welcome, sir.
Rich, how you doing? I'm looking forward to chatting with you, my friend. Absolutely.
Likewise. And thanks for braving some of the deep state interference we're having with our system. But, Congressman, it is a pleasure to have you on. And I want to get your take on what's going on. I feel very similar to the whole situation, right? I hear Elon Musk, and I feel his pain. I hear Speaker Johnson. I feel his pain. When President Trump says it's a big, beautiful bill, I feel where he's at as well. And I realize I think this is a moment in history where we have to kind of bite the bullet to get this done in order to fix some of the problems we have and move forward in the right direction. Your thoughts?
I'm with you 100%, Rich. And this we have to understand and kind of realize, why Elon is the success he is. He's a risk taker. He's a focused entrepreneur. He makes things happen on a dime when he wants to because he's in total control. And that's why he is the super success he is. That is not the way the government works. And what Mike just said is spot on. We have to understand a couple first things. Where we are right now, $38 trillion in debt over a long period of time. It's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse for a long time. And what we're doing right now is really performing pretty much of a miracle, if I can say so. We have a 3 to 4 vote margin. That's it. And we're the party that in the past has never come together. It's like herding cats because we have very strong entrepreneurial mindset. People who are very strong with their district, and unlike the left, we're not a collective. We vote the way we want to, and that's why even with the majority last time, people wonder if we're going to ever keep it because we could not keep our act together or work as a team. What we have with President Trump is a visionary. He has a vision of what it will take to get our country back long term. I mean, I can go through all innovation, whether it be education, whether it be the tariff concept in which last time this happened back in 1913 when actually 95% of our federal income came from tariffs. So he's looking at things in quite a different way, and he also looking at the reality of our political situation. We have to keep our house together to push this through, which was an act in itself. And now what we're saying is if the Senate can come together with us, we're going to give the American people hope. We're going to give businesses an opportunity to see and project the business long term. We're going to seal the border in the different ways. We're going to actually no tax on tips, on Social Security. Think about the things we're talking about that no other president's talked about. I want to make this one point, and for those who missed it, not too long ago, he made the point that we're going to balance the budget. Now imagine a president of the United States saying that. First time I've ever heard anybody say that. But those are the kind of things that he can see long term because he understands how to pull all these different pieces together, including growing our GDP, including bringing $10 trillion of investments back to the United States already. Those are the kind of things that nobody's ever done. So my suggestion is let's trust the coach. Let's trust the person who's an expert. He's a genius when it comes to business, a genius when it comes to negotiating. He loves our country. And he has a culture he's putting together that we can finally, as a team, work together versus being all over the place. So, again, I respect Elon, but Elon's not the president. And Elon would never be elected as president because he doesn't have the ideas, the vision, and understanding that President Trump has in terms of running a business like this, a country like we are right now.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you make. And coming from a former pro baller like you, I think you're right. There's times where you might go, that doesn't make sense, but you know what? You got to trust the coach, run the play, and I think that's the right way to look at this. Amigos, we're coming right back with Congressman Burgess Owens.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez, and we're in conversation with Congressman Burgess Owens, Utah's 4th District. Congressman, you were making a point right before the break. I want to bring us right back to that. Go right ahead.
Okay, Rich, and I won't take too much time doing this, but I've been here before. Back in 1981, I played with a team, the Oakland Raiders. That was a team of really, second chance, misfits, guys who could not make it on any other team, but Al Davis had a culture. That is, no matter what your personality was, no matter how wild you might be, when it came down to putting your foot on the field, you played the game and you were a teammate that played your part. That culture was something that gave us a remarkable understanding of what it is to have excitement about a process and about having faith in a coach and an owner. So I would say this: we have that opportunity right now that I have not felt for all these years. We need to take advantage of. We have a president who knows what he's doing. He loves our country, and And we're going to get through this process because, again, it's something that we have not seen in our lifetime. It's a special window that we have to have the American people, the House, the Senate, and the President all America first. This is a very, very unique time. So we need to come together and realize he knows what he's talking about, and let's get on to the other side of this big, beautiful bill and get our country moving forward.
Amen to that, Congressman Burgess Owens. Now, I want to, get your take on a couple of things. The media is going crazy, at least the left within the media, talking about how tariffs are breaking the economy, how the sky is falling. And I honestly don't see it that way. It looks like we've had inflation coming down the last 3 months. It doesn't seem like it's as bad as the left is painting. Is that me being a sycophant, or am I just seeing what they don't see?
No. You have to understand what the left is all about. They're fearmongers. The left has never been one of optimism. The left, keep in mind, is the one that divides us whenever they get a chance. No, we have a time in our country that we are truly bending the curve. And it's going to take a while. I can't do it overnight. But I want to just walk real quickly. We're going through reconciliation, and reconciliation can only deal with mandatory. That's the Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. That's all we can touch. And I think we brought back close to $1 billion in that one area. Then we have rescissions, which are going through right now, things that the discretionary, things like USAID, those kind of things. And we bring back $9.4 billion there. And then the tariffs, I've just reading recently, we're going to have someplace over close to $3 trillion of revenue driven by our tariff process once it gets put in place. So I would say this. We have a lot of things we're trying to pull together, and part of it is growing our GDP, make sure our businesses can begin to thrive and prosper, make sure the middle class is expanding. You're talking about no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, all those kind of things that we're not talking about doing. We grow the middle class, allow us to have that optimism again, take our risks and grow. We're gonna be a country that is so exciting to be part of. And again, it's gonna be President Trump, and his vision is gonna get us there. So don't listen to the left. They were the ones that were excited about Biden. So know that we have a different vision totally from what those guys want this country to be.
Amigos, we're on with Congressman Burgess Owens from Utah's 4th District. Now, Congressman, I guess lastly, President Trump was on a call with President Putin today. They're trying to reach an agreement. At least it seems to me like Trump wants to make an agreement. I don't know that I'm convinced that Putin wants any agreement. Neither does Zelensky, because it seems like both of them seem to do better if they're at war, at least financially. Your thoughts? Yeah.
I kind of go along with you on that one. I don't trust either side, to be honest with you. Putin, I think, is pure evil. I think Zelensky has an ego that will not allow him to do certain things, in particular listen to President Trump. This is one of those things that is so unfortunate. We have a President Trump, who's trying his best to save lives. So again, as we get through this process, and I don't know what other triggers we have, other things we can do to put some kind of pressure on Russia. But I'm hoping we get to that soon, because again, every single day the needless lives lost because of what's going on right now.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Congressman, let everybody know how they can find you online and check out all the great work that you guys are cranking out from your office.
Well, just look me up on X, Burgess Owens, Burgess Owens, and I'll tell you again, I'm very, very easy to find. We do a lot of things on X particularly. I would say this though, if I can just leave you with a thought or process it. We're in a very exciting time, Rich. We have a window that I've never seen before. The key is let's continue to hustle in the areas we're into. Let's continue to believe that we have a president who's going to find the best way to get our country moving forward. Trust in the practice of the process that he loves our nation. And of course, we'll get through all the nuances to make sure we get there. But as a member of the House, we're going to back him. And then we have to make sure we work with the Senate to do the same thing. And we get this big, beautiful bill through. It's going to be an exciting time for all of us.
Well, amen. Praise God. Hallelujah. I love the way that sounds. Congressman Burgess Owens, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I want to thank you for being here, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Same here, Rich. All the best, my friend. Take care.
You bet. God bless. And amigos, we're going to get to your thoughts, calls, and reactions when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833 for Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833 Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company tonight, and I want to go to one of my favorite callers, Paul in Boise, Idaho. He's on the line streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead, Paul.
Thanks for taking my call, Mr. Valdez.
Yes, sir.
Two things. I like Burgess Owens. I liked him when he was a player. Like him even more as a congressman. Other than that, you are under the purview of the FCC, and you also have emergency broad network, where you make the beeping noise.
EBS, yeah, Emergency Broadcast System.
Right. Thank you. They're not allowed to jam your station. That's that's entirely underneath the purview of the FCC, which is the federal government. Somebody gets caught doing that, they can get in big trouble. I'd make sure I'd make a notice to them about that. The only last thing I wanted to talk about briefly is Putin and trying to devise a way to get back at the people that were responsible, not just the bombing of the planes, but the people responsible for bombing the planes, and devising a plan for 18 months. It came off masterfully, but I think the guy's a madman. He's mad to a point, but he also has control, I believe, at the same time, which is kind of unusual. He's almost like a Moriarty. I just, I hate to see him go overboard, but he got very close to doing that when that happened. I heard that the nuke planes were flying and the silos were opened, and it was kind of hairy. I don't think
Paul,
I'll forget that night for a long time.
Are you talking about what's happening in the Middle East or what's happening in Russia?
In Russia and Ukraine.
And Ukraine.
Yeah.
With
I haven't heard any change. I haven't heard any change as far as Middle East is concerned, although I do have a personal preference. I think you ought to use the Moabs. I think you ought to bomb them back into a submission and stay away from the nukes. Absolutely stay away from the nukes. Otherwise, we'll be condemned by the rest of the world like we were at the end of World War II. And cooler heads can prevail, but when you're talking about Iran, there's no cooler heads.
Yeah,
they're hell bent
I
on
agree with
leather
that.
about taking us out.
They're not cool at all. Those guys are pretty hot-headed. Now, Paul, I want to ask you something because, you're out there in Idaho, in Boise, and, that's America, right? It's as America as it gets. Kind of like where I am, right? I'm in South Bend, Indiana. And the people here, salt of the earth, just wonderful people. And what's your take on what we were talking about regarding all this opposition to the big, beautiful bill that's coming from the media, coming from the left, and we can expect that to come from the left within Congress as well?
Well, the problem is the deep state didn't come up with a plan for the money. They don't have control over the money. Therefore, they're gonna be opposed to it all the way up and down the line because it's not their baby. What Biden's administration just did was blow $7 trillion, and we got nothing out of it. And so they want that gravy train to continue, and they'll stop at nothing to do it. If it means cheating, lying, whatever, they'll do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. This is one of those situations where people.
Their MO.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's their MO. You go ahead.
No, that's it. That was basically my point. Is that this opposition comes from doing things that are actually for the people, right? When you talk about no tax on tips, this is why I became a conservative in the first place. When I saw how much certain politicians really favored taking your money, my money, the money that, I felt like I had an illegal partner in my business because of the amount of money I was paying in taxes. I thought, man, these people have no problem and no remorse in adding taxes and taking your taxes and taxing and spending to do whatever it is that they want. And there were other Republicans who adamantly opposed taxes and were radical to the other side, saying, hey, give me a dirt road and a horse. And I signed up with them because I realized, I'd rather have a dirt road and a horse and than this massive highway infrastructure that I have to pay you for. If, giving you the extreme of both sides. Now, of course, somewhere in the middle, I think everybody can exist. The problem is getting to that middle, right? And what we know today is that middle doesn't always exist, right? A lot of times it's coerced. It comes by way of bribery. It comes by way of lots of wheeling and dealing to get to that middle. And it's not really a middle. It's more of a series of compromises that have put us in the position we're in. And which is why you have the Rand Pauls and the Thomas Masseys of the world that are saying, look, ya basta, enough is enough. We can't play this game anymore. And I agree with them. At the same time, I realize that while they're right, we also have to play ball in this swamp. And it puts you in this bind. You have to move forward, and you can't move forward because not everybody is a Rand Paul and a Thomas Massey. And you've got to work with the rest of them that aren't. You've got to work with the rest of the crew in the swamp. And that, I think, is why these people do what they do. And this addiction to cash, eventually, I hope, is something that we can curtail. But I don't know if we ever really get to a place where we can truly curtail the cash addiction. Anyway, Paul, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Amigos, the rest of your calls and so much more coming up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Inflation slowing, I should say, to its lowest rate in more than 4 years. That, according to April's Consumer Price Index report. It's an unexpected and very welcome development that's defying economists' expectations amid President Trump's ongoing trade war. Let's go live right now to CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich, who's watching all of this in New York. Vanessa, walk us through this morning's report. Where do things stand?
Encouraging signs, Wolf. Inflation continuing to move in the right direction, cooling on an annual basis to 2.3%.
Well, would you look at that? Wolf Blitzer and CNN talking about inflation cooling, going in the right direction, 2.3%. I don't know about you guys, but I remember Joe Biden's inflation, right? When Joe Biden was in office, inflation was, I don't know, wasn't it like 14%? And that was a big lie back then because they weren't including inflation on energy and housing costs and whatever. But 2.3% by the same math that Biden was using doesn't sound too bad to me, not too shabby at all. So it's such an interesting time, right? An interesting time where now it's okay, totally okay for CNN to talk about inflation being down. Meanwhile, when it was skyrocketing under Biden, they came up with every excuse in the world, including it's transitory. I think the whole thing is, I'll let you fill in the adjective because I've got too many and I can't say them all on the radio. I want to go to the calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's see. Let's go to the center of our nation, WLS. I'm right by there, by the way. South Bend is not that far from WLS. I think the plane ride from right by the WLS, right by O'Hare to where I am, 16 minutes in the air. It was pretty cool. Let's go to Jim, Naperville, Illinois. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, you know what? I drove right through South Bend the other day, bringing my daughter home from Purdue University in Illinois, in Indiana, in West Lafayette. But back to Naperville. However, I just wanted to give condolences to your family, and it's sad for your loss. But
Thank
short
you.
of heaven, what you've always, the way that you conduct your radio show is that it's like short of heaven. The way that we interact with each other defines our soul. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
And and that's the way you do it. And beyond that, it's it's all our ultimate destiny, man. You know what I mean? It's like you just balance things out really well and do a great job. And there's a time for politics, but there's a time for family. You know what I'm saying? And I hope everything works out well for you guys.
Well, I appreciate that, Jim. That's very kind of you to say. If you could tell, I'm blushing through the radio, and I really do appreciate it. I want to take a moment to talk about this part of the country and many parts of the country I've been to. And this is why I love to work while I'm traveling, and I don't like to take the night off or bring in a guest host or something like that unless I absolutely have to. And it's because I get to tell you about what I saw, what I found, what I learned. After the service here in South Bend, and not to bore people, I know people want to hear about the news of the day, but just to give you a little tidbit on what my day looked like. Wonderful ceremony, really beautiful. The eulogies and whatnot. But after all that, we went for a beer. My buddy wanted to have a beer, a Guinness, because his dad liked Guinness, and that was his tradition with his dad. And we did, and he poured his dad one in an empty chair, and it was a special moment. And I got to tell you, so many people knew this tradition here in South Bend, and they came over and they were offering their condolences, and they were absolute strangers, the kindest people ever. And we stuck out like sore thumbs, because we didn't look like we were from this neighborhood. So I just thought it was very kind of them. Absolutely, really, really kind people here, and I appreciate your call and your comments as well, Jim. Thank you very much. Godspeed to you, my friend. And on that note, good night and God bless you, America. Of course, if you want to check out the program, anything you may have missed, go to richvaldez.com. And if you're in the part of the country where we're coming back in the next hour and then the hour after that, great. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. God bless you, America. I am Rich Valdez.
But I want to talk about the Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy to be here with you, blessed to be with you this evening. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to jump into a few things today. There's a lot going on. The left is really going somewhere else with this big, blue, beautiful bill. But I want to bring in our guest, Mandy Gunasekara, former chief at the EPA, the Chief of Staff. Welcome back, ma'am.
Yeah, it's great to be with you.
Thank you. So what's your take on this, that we're going to lose the climate game to China? Last I checked, China isn't winning any climate games, Mandy.
No, and they certainly don't take it seriously. I mean, they've been saying this since former President Obama signed the United States up for the Paris Climate Accord, which was such a bad deal for the United States. And the talking point back then was, well, if we don't do this, China's going to fill the void. But let me tell you what China has done since they signed onto this piece of paper that isn't worth the actual paper it's printed on. They have built more coal facilities than most of the major industrialized European countries combined. and all of the purported emissions benefits, I'm air quoting, you can't see me because it's a loaded term, but they would be
Right.
undone by 2 weeks of status quo operations in China. And here's the biggest difference. The coal plants that they're building in China don't use the advanced technologies that U.S. coal plants use. So what we're actually doing with a lot of this climate agenda is pushing economic development and energy development to places like China that will sign a piece of paper, but they will do nothing to actually balance economic development alongside environmental protection. And all of that pollution ends up landing over there on the west coast of the United States, creating all sorts of local problems over there.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I find it incredibly rich that the Chinese and for that matter, even the folks in India who are big polluters, whenever they want to point the finger at the United States, who likely, at least from my understanding, does way more to combat the carbon footprint, and I'm also doing bunny air quotes here, than they ever have. And they're constantly trying to attack us.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we figured out how to grow the economy, develop the energy resources for which we've been abundantly blessed, mostly coal, oil, and natural gas, and reduce overall emissions. Traditional things like particulate matter that you don't want floating around, as well as improving efficiency, which has lower overall emissions, including greenhouse gas emissions. So, yeah, we actually have an amazing track record when you want to measure the emissions profiles of various operations. But yeah, it is absolutely absurd to take any type of criticism from China or India when it comes to environmental protection. Not only are they're not prioritizing efficient operations, they can barely control pollution like particle pollution or ozone pollution, nitrous oxide, things that we have known how to effectively control in this country since the 1970s. They don't even control those properly, which is why people have been wearing masks in China for a long time, because the air quality has been so bad. It's been the equivalent of smoking cartons of cigarettes a day just by walking from point A to point B, because they don't use basic pollution control equipment that our industrialized entities have been using for quite some time.
Amigos, we're on with Mandy Gunasekara, former Chief of Staff at the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And I want to get your take, having been on the inside, and you see much of the movement that's going on now with Lee Zeldin and everything else that's happening with our climate agenda in the United States. And are you pleased with what you see, the direction that the country's going in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, look, President Trump, he's got the country back on track when it comes to all sorts of key issues, whether it's safety, whether it's economic opportunity, or our standing abroad. He's injected a ton of stability. And when it comes to Administrator Zeldin, he has brought with him a lot of former folks who served in the first Trump administration. He's got the best team working for him, and they're doing exactly what President Trump said he wanted done at EPA, to reduce unnecessary barriers to economic growth, because that's really what the left tries to do with their quote-unquote climate agenda, but to do what the EPA was set up to do, which is to clean up the air, clean up the water, and address legacy pollution, which can really change the opportunity for communities, the forgotten communities that are really a core part of President Trump's success, fixing lingering environmental problems that have held them back economically. That is happening, and it's happening really well. And on top of all that, they're cutting the budget. They're working with the Department of Government Efficiency, so they have a leaner team. They're being more efficient from a workplace perspective, more respectful of taxpayer resources, aka all of our money, and they're actually doing the job the agency was set up to do, which is protect public health and the environment, not save the world from some future doom and gloom projection around climate change, which is what the left would have the American people believe.
Well, Mandy, Congresswoman AOC told me a few years back that there was only 12 years left, so you might be guided accordingly. Now,
right. Well, we've been hearing, she's in the category of prophets at doom, as President Trump rightfully put them. They've been around since the beginning of time, always saying that the end of the world is upon us. You just have to hand all of your rights and responsibilities over to them and they can fix it.
Do you think there's much of a future for these types of climate alarmists, as you're describing, that are constantly peddling the doom and gloom of climate change, trying to, I guess, enroll people into their cult? Or do you think, like, maybe people are saying, you know what, I've been hearing about it, but I just don't see all this damage, and forget it. We're going to keep moving forward. I honestly don't know. Every now and again, I see more and more of the people I know are getting electric cars, some because they're faster, some because they're cooler, others because they're just, really afraid for the environment.
Yeah, no, I think that the doom and gloom rhetoric around climate change, I think it's on its way out. There is actually a lot of sanity and practical analyses that are coming out. There's been a huge effort where, and I really think it was COVID that blew the lid off of the American people willing to blindly trust the expert. Everyone blindly trusted the expert during the COVID era, and we weren't able to walk outside without a mask on our face or take our kids to school or operate businesses, and it got completely out of whack. I really think the pushback against that, the rightful pushback, has opened the American public's eyes to, hey, just because someone says they're an expert, maybe we shouldn't take them at their word. Maybe we should ask questions. Maybe we should ask for their original data. And all of that is super relevant to the climate change debate that has been going on for a long time. And I think the American people have caught on to the fact that there are some complex issues that the left will often use to try to drive fear so that the American people particularly are more willing to accept their left-wing ideology and socialist agenda that degrades individual rights and liberties. And so I think all of that combined with scientists, a number of various climate scientists that have had enough with cancel culture and are willing to actually go in and analyze some of these politicized projections coming from bodies like the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They've been putting out all sorts of activist-based rhetoric to try to gin up fear and anger so that they continue to get funding and legitimacy. But I think the majority of people have caught on to that charade, and so those types of folks are on their way out, and you have sanity and practicality that is starting to once again define the landscape on these issues that truly are unsettled.
Yeah, and it's almost like they've gone from lying about one thing to lying about another, at least most of them, right? Now they're all saying, well, maybe we were wrong when it comes to things that were very visible, like Biden's health, for example. So we'll get your take on that when we return. Folks, we're on with Mandy Gunasekara. She's the author of Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp, former chief of staff at the EPA. Mandy, stick around. We're going to come right back and continue the conversation. Amigos, your calls and more are coming up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
To Capitol Hill tonight, where Senate Republicans now have a date on the calendar set to investigate the alleged cover-up of former President Joe Biden's cognitive decline while he served in office. Texas Senator John Cornyn and Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt now say they're still gathering witnesses for this probe, but will hold a judiciary hearing in the Senate on this highly charged topic come June 18th.
This is about a constitutional crisis where we basically have an incompetent, mentally incompetent president who's not in charge. So the question is, who is in charge? Whose finger is on the nuclear button or has the nuclear codes? Who can Who can declare war? How do we defend the nation when we have basically an absent president?
On the House side, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer has called on several former key Biden staffers to testify on this, including he wants a transcribed interview with Biden's physician. The topic has generated a firestorm of reaction, fueled recently in part by the release of Original Sin, the new book by CNN anchor Jake Tapper and Axios reporter Alex Thompson.
That report by the National Desk, and man, very interesting stuff. Congress looking into this. I think it's worth looking at. I don't know what we're going to get out of it, but I want to get some reaction to that from our guest, Mandy Gunasekara, served in the Trump administration 1.0 as Chief of Staff at the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Mandy, when you hear about this, the people trying to, I guess, do a little bit of CYA, like Jake Tapper and whatnot, maybe trying to hold on to credibility, I don't know. Or just cash in on what he knew. It's one or the other. What's your reaction to all of this?
Yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And I will say I'm happy that the Senate is going to investigate this, because it's a very serious issue when you don't really know who was the president. And we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. The American people vote for somebody that they expect to be the head of the executive branch. That's really important for the way that our constitutional republic operates, and it's important for checks and balances. And you had all of these top key Democrat operatives constantly lying to the American people about very, very serious issues. And so I'm excited about this investigation. I think it's going to be really important when it comes to people like Jake Tapper and his new book, and now Karine Jean-Pierre that came out today, that she's got a book coming out, how she's leaving the Democrat Party. I mean, they were literally the poster children for the cover-up. They were the ones who were lying on CNN, or they were lying every day from the press briefing room, the White House press briefing room, to the American people. And so it's just it's a major CYA exercise. I will not be buying either of their books, because I don't think that they should benefit personally from the fact that they were the face of these lies, and now they're the first of probably a lot of people in the Biden era that are going to put books out that's basically saying, yeah, we admit it was a problem. We wish that we'd been a little bit more serious about this, but it was actually a little bit harder, a little more convoluted to figure out, and you shouldn't blame us. Let's just focus on how do we fix this and move on. I mean, it's absolutely absurd, and it's frustrating. And so I hope from this investigation, I mean, there are very real consequences. This wouldn't necessarily be Karine Jean-Pierre or Jake Tapper, but any of the former cabinet officials that testified before Congress. Exactly. You lie to Congress, that has very serious consequences. So I think the investigation will be enlightening, and I hope it is carried live by broadcast so the American people can tune in and get a dose of the truth of what happened over the past 4 years during the Biden era.
You know, Mandy, I think you're spot on here, and the part that I think is most important is the one you just mentioned, the cabinet officials, right? Everybody who's a member of the cabinet has a constitutional responsibility to use the 26th Amendment if they knew that the president was unable to perform his duties. Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't, right? And she's likely going to write a book and make a lot of money and say, oh, I had no idea. He looked great to me. Jill said he was fine. But when it comes to why didn't Kamala Harris do this? She had everything to gain in saying, hey, let's push him over the ledge here. Let's say he's not functioning. So I'm wondering, did she get lied to? But how is it that I didn't get lied to? I wasn't even in the White House and I knew he wasn't well. So I have to say, I think they're all complicit. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think they all were a part of the cover-up. It was obvious to those of us looking at him on a screen that he had major cognitive problems going back to 2020 when he was running. And that's why, they took the COVID restrictions so seriously. It wasn't about them, being serious about COVID. It's because they wanted to use that as a cover to shield the reality of their candidate and his cognitive decline and his frailty when it comes to his physical health. They wanted to shield that from the American people, and they got away with it in 2020. They thought they could get away with it again, and it was up until the debate where there was no way that they were coming back from it. There was no way for them to shield the American public from the truth, because we had a couple hours of it during that debate. And it was only at that point when they realized he wasn't the guy that would carry them to another victorious ticket that, you know, everyone kind of turned on him, and they did. They threw him off the cliff. They pushed him out of the wheelchair, or whatever analogy you want to ultimately use. And Kamala, all of the top Democrat staffers at the White House, the cabinet officials, they're all complicit and a part of it.
Mandy Gunasekara, I want to thank you for being here. Folks, check out her book. It is one of the ones I think you should get two of, one for yourself, one to give away. Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. Mandy, where do people find out more about you and follow your work?
Yeah, the best place is on X at Mississippi MG, or you can go to my website, mandy.ms.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to more conversation with you as things continue to develop. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And amigos, we're coming right back. Your thoughts, calls, reactions, and everything else. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
My view is it's critical that our immigration system work under the rule of law, according everyone due process of law. Expedited removal is a rare, but it's a constitutional procedure. The critical fact of our immigration system is we have a backlog of over 1 million people who've gone through procedures like this who haven't yet actually been deported. That's where our focus should be when we talk about immigration. The climate of fear we're in, where so many people who are in a range of different statuses are being targeted, often in haphazard ways. And obviously, we've talked a lot about denial of due process. This procedure will go forward. And if the individuals don't have any basis for staying here, they can be removed as long as the procedure goes forward.
Making an example is understating it, Willie. You know, the White House almost gloating at victory lap. A number of tweets last night about about this suspect's family, rushing them out. And I was told by a White House advisor late yesterday that this is sort of the plan here. Is that we know from covering Donald Trump for a long time, his reflex is always to come back to immigration. He believes that's a signature issue. He believes that's what got him elected, and that Americans want to see things like this. Now, in this case, obviously, we don't know the family's involvement. The suspect is accused of a heinous crime. There are certainly plenty of Americans who would be glad to see him go, but might have questions about the family. But they're leaning into this sort of in-your-face imagery that didn't necessarily work per polling earlier this term with this deportations to the El Salvador prison and the like, but they're doubling down on that sort of public image.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Welcome to another hour. I'm very happy. I'm very excited. My microphone is working. The headphones are working. We're connected. We're sounding really good. You can't keep a good man down. God bless America. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is our phone number, live and national. 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And, man, it's good to be here with you. crazy day, lots going on. I want to get into some of the news. Karine Jean-Pierre, remember KJP? I never came up with a good nickname. You guys gave me so many good ones, but none of them quite stuck for me. Karine Jean-Pierre says she's no longer a Democrat. She's Miss Independent. And all I could think of is this is A, because of a book she's going to sell, and B, and nothing wrong with selling books, right? Nothing wrong with it at all. I think the issue here is there's something wrong with being disingenuous. And I think that's probably an accurate depiction, and it's definitely my opinion of her. But I think this is CYA, right? She's covering her rear end. And because she sat there and told everybody Joe Biden was great, thinking nobody would ever, spill the beans and that Jake Tapper wouldn't turn around and write a book and tell everybody that she was full of it and she's a fake, she's a phony, she's a fraud. So now what? Oh, now she's got to write a book, do her own tell-all, since people are throwing people under the bus. And listen, not anything new, right? This is the modern face of politics. We saw the same thing. Some people turned their betrayals into full careers. What do I mean? One of the young ladies on The View, right? The View's always had a Republican, right? Not necessarily conservative, but a Republican. They had Meghan McCain, Elizabeth Hasselbeck. Now they have, I believe her name is Alyssa Farah. I think that's her name. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe that's somebody from MTV. I might be confusing her with someone else. But whoever she is, you know who I'm talking about, the one all the way on the right, on their little round table. She went against Trump, and she's doing great. She's on The View. I'm sure they pay her well to be there to do that work. So for some people, this betrayal goes well, and I'm sure Karine Jean-Pierre is hoping that this will go well for her. Now, Jen Circleback Psaki, you remember her, right? Silent P, of course. Jen Psaki didn't have to go against Biden because she left at the right time. A little bit brighter than KJP, in my opinion. And when she needs to separate herself, she can say what she wants to say about Biden because she's not there. So I think it's a move for her to position herself for her next gig. Karine Jean-Pierre, she's a young woman. She's got a future ahead of her, and I think she's positioning herself. She wants to sell a book and protect herself so that she retains some credibility. And I think Jake Tapper is trying to do the same thing. And I guess if you don't believe in Jake Tapper, or if you think he's full of it, it doesn't matter how many books he writes, and mea culpas he does. It won't sway your opinion. But for others who don't have disdain for Jake Tapper, or Fake Tapper as he's known colloquially, then perhaps it doesn't move the needle. Or maybe it does. I don't know. I guess it depends on how you feel about the guy. But that's her. Now, something I want to play for you guys, because I thought this was great. Really, really good clip of audio we got here. The chairman or the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought. This is very good. He was at a budget hearing today on Capitol Hill, and he says the days of funding cultural Marxism are over. Listen to number 11. Check this out.
Over the past 4 months, the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, has worked tirelessly to deliver on President Trump's promise of a federal government that works for the American people, not bureaucrats and the entrenched establishment. Under the previous administration, government spending aggressively turned against our citizens, who saw their tax dollars used to fund cultural Marxism, the Green New Scam, foreign projects unaligned with American interests, and even our own invasion. Every agency became a tool of the left. Under President Trump, those days are over. The president's fiscal year 26 budget, in tandem with the One Big Beautiful Bill and other tools this administration has at its disposal, will finally end the era of unchecked federal spending, stop the weaponization of government, and turbocharge economic growth. The fiscal year 26 budget puts American citizens first and shifts the destructive paradigm that ruled Washington for decades, that we could only fund national security and border security if we massively funded woke and weaponized bureaucracy coveted by the left. The president's budget reduces non-defense spending by $163 billion, 22% below current year levels, and the lowest non-defense spending since 2017 if adjusted for inflation, all while we protect funding for national defense, homeland security, veterans, seniors, law enforcement, and infrastructure.
The point is, those days are over. And we have to applaud this, right? We have to applaud that we are heading in a direction with people on the bus, the right people in the right seats, the right guys on the team that are trying to really make a difference, right? That are trying to get rid of financed, as he put it, cultural Marxism in our country. Financed by who? You, the American taxpayer. Think about that, right? Joe Biden oftentimes would use this dirty little trick in his campaigning that was effective for him, right? If things weren't going his way, if he got a tough question, if he was losing a crowd, he would start whispering. Oftentimes, he would start screaming about, what about the single mom who's trying to feed her kids? What about the mom who's trying to take care of a little boy, right? And he would do all that stuff because he knew that it struck a chord with people. Well, this strikes a chord with me. When you talk about financing cultural Marxism, when you talk about financing the human smuggling at the southern border, and the United States overseeing that, right? The United States under Joe Biden's watch, overseeing the largest human smuggling operation that we've ever seen in our country's history, you've got to ask yourself, when does it end? Well, that's why I was happy to hear Russ Vought say, those days are over. Anyway, amigos, keep it locked right here. I want to talk about immigration and a couple other things because apparently there's a lot going on that front. There's always something new happening, so we're going to discuss that momentarily. People are upset about the National Guard, saying we shouldn't be using the National Guard to bolster border security efforts. Well, I have to say, this is up to A, the governor, and B, the president, right? So I think in both cases, especially in Texas, for example, where it's happening, you've got both of them that are on board. Sounds like a losing fight to me. I wouldn't fight the City Hall on this one. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm.
The Border Patrol swearing in 60 Texas National Guard soldiers.
Constitution of the United States.
To help enforce federal immigration law.
With this swearing in, you will become enforcers of Title VIII of the United States Code, able to apprehend and detain those who cross the border illegally.
Walter Slosar, the interim chief for the Border Patrol's El Paso sector, touted the addition of the soldiers and says they'll help enforce Title VIII of immigration law, which essentially allows U.S. Border Patrol to process and remove migrants who do not have a legal basis to remain in the United States.
Another spokesperson for the Border Patrol says it's a change in how the National Guard soldiers operate.
Moving beyond their previous responsibilities or roles to observe and assist.
In a statement, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, who represents El Paso in Washington, says in part, quote, using Texas National Guard for immigration enforcement is costly and unnecessary, especially given that, according to the Trump administration, border encounters are down by 95%. Instead of funding border operations, Governor Abbott should focus on his responsibility to adequately fund public education. She also said that the National Guard soldiers do not need to be deployed away from their families and homes so that Donald Trump and Greg Abbott can look tough.
So that right there is the topic of discussion because people are freaking out in Texas. And of course, why? Because the president is trying to secure the border. Well, a couple of days ago, very good piece in the Washington Examiner. Excuse me. Headline, the National Guard has defended our borders before. And it's always, I think, it's always valuable to have a conversation about that, because oftentimes we're not reinventing the wheel. We're doing what we've always done, but the ignorance, not CE, but ANTS, the plural, ignorance on the left, because they don't know better, they just start screaming bloody murder. So I want to get into this piece. The piece is written by Ammon Blair, and I think we've got him on the line to join us to have that discussion. Ammon Blair, welcome.
Oh, thank you, sir, for having me.
My pleasure. So I'm looking at your piece, and I think you raise a lot of really good points. And I think it's important that we know why the National Guard has really been part of the backbone of our border security historically. Tell us more.
Sure. So back when Woodrow Wilson was president, we had an insurgency coming across the border and raiding towns, and that was Pancho Villa. At that time, the Mexican Revolution was also going on. And so there was a lot of chaos on the border. And at that time, there was no border patrol. It was actually, the border was actually guarded by the Army. It was guarded by the War Department. They actually had roughly around 20,000 soldiers across the entire southwest border, and that still was not enough. And so Pancho Villa was having raids across the border and killing civilians and raiding towns. And so the United States acted, and they activated almost 110,000 National Guard soldiers from across the United States to secure the border. And this was right before World War I, and so they actually used this to not only secure the border, but also to prepare themselves for World War I.
Outstanding. Folks, we're on with Ammon Blair. He's a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, but he's also retired from the United States Border Patrol and the United States Army as an officer. And I think you have a unique perspective, not only the historical acumen to, guide us through this, but also the boots on the ground experience. Now, let's talk about, you cited a few examples, Pancho Villa and previous presidents doing similar. What do you think the catalyst of this is? Is this pure politics? Is it a lack of understanding? Is it because they're ignorant to what's going on? Why do you think that they're so antagonistic on points like this?
Sure, a few things. One, there's a complete lack of understanding. Look, the Mexican cartels operationally control both sides of the border. They still do. Now, Pete Hegseth has been given the command to seal the border, to obtain 100% domain awareness, meaning that we can understand who, what, where, why, how, or when something comes across, and then also control everything that comes across between the ports of entry and at the port of entry. That still has not happened. That's a process. Before that, the cartels have actually, once the PRI in Mexico started degrading, and there was a little more freedom in terms of other parties coming into power, that's when the cartels started to rise up against the Mexican state and formed an insurgency. From that time period, there was an insurgency on the south of the border, but on the north side, they actually controlled our populations through corruption, coercion, threat of violence or threat of kidnap, and then also socioeconomically by providing jobs through illicit trafficking, so on and so forth. And so from the 90s up until now, the cartels have actually dominated. And at this point, they outgun, outman, outfund Department of Homeland Security. And so it actually, the only organization that we have in existence in the United States that would be able to secure a wide area security is the Department of Defense. And that is why the National Guard is needed. Many people want to make the claim that it's because, or that they're going after illegal aliens or whatnot. But in all reality, at the end of the day, it's because we have foreign terrorist organizations that control not just Mexico, but our side of the border. And DOD is the only ones who can actually defend that. And so illegal immigration is unfortunately a commodity for the cartel, illegal aliens. And so by stemming that tide of their certain type of commodity, if we look at it at that point as opposed to just illegal immigration, that it makes a lot more sense in terms of sending the military or the Department of Defense down there. And then the other reason why they don't want to talk about it or they try to discredit it is that they believe in open borders. And so if they recognize the threats that exist in Mexico at our border, then they're going to have to recognize the need for DOD. But if they refuse to recognize those threats and then claim that the only thing that's happening at our border are refugees, asylum seekers, family units, children coming across, then they can justify saying that there's no need for the military.
Really well put. Ammon Blair has a really interesting piece in the Washington Examiner. And Ammon, let everybody know where they can follow you if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing.
Sure. You guys, your audience can come and see all the stuff that we do at texaspolicy.com. And our initiative is called the Secure and Sovereign Texas Initiative. We have all of our research up there. Anytime we testify, both at the state legislature or in Congress, all of our videos are going to be on there as well.
Outstanding. Folks, check out Ammon Blair. Check out this piece as well, and I'll tweet it out in a little bit, maybe after the show, so that everybody could take a look at it. But very, very interesting, a lot of historical facts, and really corroborates a lot of what President Trump has been talking about, using the military inside of Mexico. So, Ammon, thank you very much. I appreciate the insight. Amigos, we come back with your thoughts, calls, reactions, and so much more, because it's Open Phones across America. Open Phone America coming up right now.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio, and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company for the rest of the evening, or for maybe another half hour. And I want to get to your thoughts, calls, and reactions on everything we're talking about. We're going to do that momentarily. Something that I wanted to talk about, though, just to put on the table, because I thought it was very interesting, was this this report here, this clip that I've got. Let me just pull it up again so I can remind myself of what it is. It was number 10. And it's of Chairman Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve, the Fed, right? Jerome Powell says today that interest rates will not be dropped. Listen to this.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite heightened uncertainty, the economy is still in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer-run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation appear to have risen, and we believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
So, no, we're not going to see an economic boom from people going out and buying houses left and right, which I think we would see, right? You tell me. I don't know. Let's maybe do some calls on that too. Would you? I can tell you for one, the minute that I see interest rates less than 6.75, 6.5, once we see them just even slightly lower, I'm very interested in trying to get something in Miami. I'm looking for something with a little balcony, a little water view. I mean, why not, right? You only live once. YOLO. And I think there's a lot of people like me out there. There's a lot of people that are, they see the writing on the wall. They understand that there's money to be made in this beautiful country that we live in. When you know something's about to pop off, you should put your money in it. So I don't know anything. I do know a lot of people inside this and inside that, but I don't have any inside scoop on this. But I do know that there's been talk because of the Genius Act about a stable coin. Now, this is not something I'm making up or something I heard on YouTube. This is something that the United States Congress is talking about, right? Attaching a token called a stable coin to some sort of value. And this is what they're working on, right? A week ago, Wall Street Journal reported that you had big three banks, right? It was Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, and I forget who the third one was, but all talking about who are we going to pick for the stable coin? How are we going to pick it? What are we going to do? What are we attaching this coin to? This is big news because the other big news from a month ago was that banks are now getting into the crypto game, no longer cash. So if crypto is becoming mainstream, when you go on vacation, your ATM machine asks you if you want cash or crypto. Bitcoin doing very, very well, very solid performance. To me, the writing's on the wall. There's going to be a whole lot more exchanges made by way of crypto. I think last week there was a story, let me see if I find it, on a real estate transaction in Miami that was conducted entirely by crypto. And I thought, interesting. Now, the reason this is interesting is because while, like me, I'm sure many of you are saying, yeah, you know what, I'm more traditional, I'm not into that. I don't know. I don't like the crypto scene. Doesn't matter what you like. The reality is it's coming our way. So when you move this money, they use another coin for that. I believe the coin that there's a lot of speculation around using is something called XRP, right? And that's why whenever we have my favorite Wall Street entrepreneur turned Newsmax TV host, John Tobacco, whenever we come on, we talk about XRP, developed by a company called Ripple, because XRP seems to be the only game in town to be able to move money, values, currencies, crypto, cross borders, not including the current system where you move cash, right, which is the SWIFT banking system. So it makes sense to me that if XRP is cheap now, it's likely going to go up, kind of like Newsmax stock. Newsmax stock started at $10 a share, went up to like $1,400 a share or whatever it was, and then, leveled out. But it's worth plenty. And Newsmax became a multi-billion-dollar outfit very, very quickly. So I think I see the writing on the wall. I think most Americans do. So what is slowing down Jerome Powell? Why is he being so slow to the game? Well, I think the reason he's slow to the game is because he doesn't want to see a win for Trump. And every time he gets to give one of these reports and say, nope, this time we're not doing it. Maybe next time, but right now we're staying put. We're not going to bring interest rates down. Why? Because they all have the benefit of having seen Trump in office before. And they remember how things went when Trump was in office before. Lots of movement. The economy grew. This is what they're afraid of. They remember those 2% mortgages and how people were buying homes left and right. How all the different minority groups that were, traditionally underserved, as many would say. Asians, Hispanics, African Americans, all buying homes. Not that they didn't buy them before, but they were buying them more. So this, in my opinion, I would say is sabotage, right? This is intentional damage being done by Chairman Jerome Powell. He wants to see, he's hiding behind the idea of we have to raise these interest rates because we need to slow the economy. I understand how this thing works. But I also know that we've had 3 months of low inflation and it's at 2.3%. He says the 0.3 is the reason why they're not lowering the interest rates. I say you lower the interest rates, even if it's half a point, and you'll get that down to the 2% you want instead of 2.3. Now, I'm not an economist, but I'm not blind either. I see the writing on the wall. Why doesn't he? These are the things that get me going. Maybe you guys can help me figure this out. Let's go to the phones. Shall we? We shall. Let us go here. Where do I want to go? I want to go to Mark.
Hello.
Mark
Rick.
is in
Thanks
Broadview,
for taking
Illinois.
my call.
Yes,
Thanks for
sir.
taking my
WLS.
call.
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to talk about the Egyptian national that was supposed to be deported twice and overstayed his visa, and then they gave him a work permit, and then he started those people on fire with a blowtorch and a flamethrower. And is there anything that these families, for all these people that came here and were illegally, that killed people, is there anything that they can do to sue the Biden administration and bankrupt them?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Biden administration doesn't exist anymore. You know, he's just the CEO of the United States at the time, and he's gone. Trump is there, so if they'd be suing, you know, the United States under Trump. I guess they could try to have some sort of civil suit, but I don't think it would work because, again, the politicians all survive just like at one point cops did with qualified immunity, right? Whether it's presidential immunity or whatever it is. When they're working on behalf of their job in public service, any mistake they make is just always written off as, look, I was operating in good faith, and you can't hold me personally liable for these mistakes. Now, that seems to work 100% of the time. I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions to the rule. We just haven't seen any work outside of the rule, and that's the issue. So I think, you know, I've been watching this stuff for a long time. This is my 20th year observing politics. And having worked in the State House in Governor Chris Christie's administration and seeing what state politics look like on the inside, I worked a little bit on President Bush's campaign, his reelection campaign in 2004. All I could say is you start to see trends in this business. And just like you, I'm sure you've been watching the news and doing all this stuff and all of your own travels. I don't see anybody doing anything other than Trump, right? Trump is truly the guy that is like, you know what, I see a problem here, I'm trying to fix it. Unlike most politicians, he truly is this guy that says, you know what, I only have 4 years, and in these 4 years, I'm going to try and actually fix these problems. And it may cost more than we think it's going to cost. It may mean we have to do some more spending. This is the reason that I'm on board with like the big, beautiful bill. I don't like the idea of a massive bill. I don't like big spending bills. But I realize that it's very well intentioned, you know, just like anything else. I think there's a lot of times that we conduct ourselves a certain way, right? We tend to be peaceful people. We try not to fight. We try not to do the wrong thing. But there comes a time and place where people lose their head. And if it's over something good, you know, somebody does something to your child, what are you going to do? Go there and sit down and have a good conversation with them? Maybe you will, if it depends on what they did. But if it's something where they were physically harmed, I'm pretty sure you're going to want to physically harm that person. I'm not saying you should. But I'm saying that's the reality of life. And I don't think too many people are going to fall to you, even the cops. if you go, hey, this guy he smacked my daughter or whatever, so I roughed him up. I don't think many people are going to look at you the wrong way. But that's not the world that we're in, right? I mean, I think that is the world we're in. But what I'm saying here is I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think that type of action is going to happen. And I'm not calling for that type of action. So, yeah, I think the answer to that is no. Nobody's suing anybody. All we can do is do better in electing the people that we elect. I could sit here and, you know, tell you what you want to hear and say, absolutely, we should try him for treason. We should lock them all up, throw them in jail. But I can almost guarantee you that none of that's going to happen because it never happens because it just doesn't fit the bill. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. Shout out to you, Mark, in Broadview, Illinois, WLS. Amigos, your thoughts, calls, reactions, and a couple more things I want to talk about straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And there's been a story I've been looking at, tracking throughout the day. Not sure what the latest is on it, but last I checked, there is a homeless veteran that's now wanted for the murder of his own 3 daughters. And, you know, if you've listened to this show before, I typically don't like these types of stories. Right? Why? Because, you know, I have my own kids and they're just horrible. You know, it's a horrible thing, but it's a big story and I don't want to ignore it. And it's horrible. The guy's name is Travis Decker. His ex-wife warns that his mental state has been deteriorating for months now, and she filed it in court documents. Listen to this. In the last 2 years, she documented a number of bizarre and troubling incidents that involve him, allegedly, you know, this is what she's alleging, including barging into her home, leaving the young girls crying and unattended, and hitchhiking over to the house to pick them up and whatnot hours later, in some cases 3 hours late. And obviously, you know, bad parenting, if that's true, sure, but sounds like this person needs help, right? Isn't well. I mean, the story's horrible, and I hope that is not the case. But the woman, Whitney Decker, she divorced her husband back in September of 24, and this is prior to the allegation, right, that he killed his own daughters. Now, I don't know what's going on here, but the bodies of these 3 beautiful children were found with plastic bags over their heads and zip ties around their wrists, according to police. What kind of sick, crazy person does that? Right? I mean, man, I got to tell you. It's, you see all types of brutality out there. You do. But every now and again, there's something jarring like this that gets you to make sure that you're not asleep at the wheel, to make sure that even if you've become numb and jaded to this horrible world, this stuff will wake you up. And it does. It reminds me of a story we did some years back. Might have been 2019 or 2020. Older Dominican woman, 92 years old, raped right outside of her house, in between 2 cars. Guy dragged her right in the street. It was dark. Dragged her right from her front door, her front steps, in between 2 cars that were on the street, and then proceeded to rape her and strangle her at the same time, and then left her there for dead. I mean, just bizarre, brutal. Those are things that I don't have an answer for. I never did. I doubt I ever will, other than people say, oh, I believe in God. Others say, I don't believe in God. You see stories like that, if you don't believe in the devil, you should, because that's the only answer I've got for something crazy like that. Anyway, amigos, keep it locked right here. We're coming right back to do the wrap-up and our speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You're educating America, and you are giving us an opportunity to speak freely. That's why I love this station, and I love your show.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Authorities in Washington state are searching for a father accused of killing his 3 young daughters. The 3 young girls, ages 9, 8, and 5, were reported missing over the weekend. Police say the bodies of the sisters were found on Monday after authorities spotted the father's truck near a campground. Police say the father, 32-year-old Travis Decker, was not with the truck. They also say Decker is a veteran with extensive military training and that he may pose a threat if he's approached. Authorities in Washington state are searching for a father accused.
So this is the story, right? And this search, desperate, currently underway. These 3 sisters were last seen with their dad, who was homeless, and this is part of a planned visit. The problem I have with this, and again, I'm here to poke holes in things. I don't know all the details. If the guy is home, I can tell you this. Look, I was married. And I have an ex-wife, and if my ex-wife, God forbid, were homeless, I guess I would try to help, in whatever way I could. But, I mean, it's an obvious question, where are you taking the kids if I know you have no home, right? So I think that should be part of the prearranged. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying I can only assume, because it says it was a planned visit. So maybe it was like, hey, right now I'm not on my feet. I want to take the girls to McDonald's and buy them a Happy Meal. I'm going to take them to the McDonald's, drop them off there, whatever, right? I don't know the details. But I think you've got to be extra careful when not only is it somebody who's having a financial problem because they're homeless, but also somebody who's had other, issues with mental health. And listen, you know me. I support the vets, the boys in blue. I thank them for their service. But we've got to get people help. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't get people help because they don't want the help or they don't know they need the help. But in that case, it's your job to make sure that you avoid what could be a dangerous or a potentially volatile situation. And again, I'm not saying that's what the mom did. But I'm nervous for all of them. It's a terrible thing. They're in my prayers. I hope they're in yours too. Amigos, that music means it's time for me to go. So, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.